A shocking start to the day in Israel after a Houthi ballistic missile made a direct impact at Ben-Gurion International Airport. The IDF says the air's defense system failed to intercept the missile for the first time since the start of the war. The direct hit was all caught on camera and left several people injured. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian is at Ben-Gurion with all the details now. Shosh, what more can you tell us?
Lidar, was a shocking morning for Israelis as they were on their way to work, but it was pure chaos here at Ben-Gurion Airport as these sirens were still going off as this ballistic missile made a direct hit. Now, it hit a grove nearby a road that is within the perimeters of Ben-Gurion Airport. Take a look at your screen right now. This is the direct moment the Houthi ballistic missile hit nearby.
Whoa! 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 Whoa, it's a boom!
You can hear and see the explosion inside of this grove as the Houthi ballistic missile made a direct impact. It's the first time since the war started the IDF failed to intercept a Houthi missile attack, despite the military's new technology that is alerting civilians with a warning a few minutes before sirens even go off. The IDF said that attempts were made to intercept the projectile and the results are being reviewed. Magen David Adom says 6 people were physically injured because of the strike, including a man in his 50s with injuries to his limbs and 2 women who were hit by shockwaves. Another man was injured after he was hit by an object that flew from the impact site. Another 2 women were injured from running to the shelter. It was chaos at Ben-Gurion Airport when the missile hit. People were running from check-in and drop-off, and there was even light damage to part of a terminal. Ben-Gurion closed its airspace for about an hour after the attack happened, delaying flights and trains that were entering and departing to and from the airport. Some airlines even canceled their flights into Israel, including Air India, Air Europa, Australian Airlines, and Brussels Airlines. A senior official from the terror group and Iranian-backed proxy, the Houthis, say they demonstrated their ability to strike sensitive targets in Israel. Defense Minister Israel Katz issued a statement after the attack, saying, quote, "Whoever harms us, we will strike them sevenfold." Lidar, since Friday, the Houthis have launched 4 ballistic missiles and 2 drones at Israel. No damages or injuries were reported. Lidar?
Thank you, Shosh. The Houthis, a serious threat. And now, day 576 of the war in Gaza, and Prime Minister Netanyahu has reportedly okayed an expanded Gaza operation with call-up orders issued to tens of thousands of reservists. Limited operations in Gaza are ongoing, and the IDF announced the deaths of 2 soldiers killed and 2 others wounded in a blast in a booby-trapped tunnel in Rafah. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz has the latest.
The IDF issued a major call-up of tens of thousands of reservists to prepare for an expanded ground operation in Gaza. According to reports, Prime Minister Netanyahu is waiting to launch the campaign until after President Trump's upcoming Middle East trip. The call-up of reservists for a significant expansion of the ongoing military operation in Gaza comes amid continuing efforts to reach a new mediated ceasefire deal with Hamas. Netanyahu held security consultations and reviewed war plans. The cabinet is today expected to approve the military plans authorized by the prime minister. Fighting has been ongoing since the breakdown of the ceasefire in mid-March. Over the weekend, Israeli airstrikes reportedly killed some 42 people, with strikes on Hamas strongholds in numerous locations, including Gaza City, Berej, and Beit Lahia. This as Hamas released yet another propaganda video, this time of wounded hostage Maxim Herkin. Meanwhile, as the Israeli aid ban in Gaza reaches its 2-month mark, the IDF is gearing up to oversee the resumption of aid delivery under strict supervision. This amid dire warnings from aid groups of humanitarian conditions in the Gaza Strip. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas condemned the blockade while calling out what he called Hamas-affiliated gangs for looting Gaza warehouses. Amid the ongoing warfare, the IDF announced the deaths of 2 soldiers killed and 2 others wounded in a blast in a booby-trapped tunnel in Rafah. The fallen were identified as 23-year-old Captain Noam Ravid from Sharei Tikva and Staff Sergeant Yali Siror, 20, from Omer.
And not just in Gaza, increased escalation in Syria over the weekend after the IDF carried out airstrikes within the country. These violent clashes led to dozens of Syrian Druze killed. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian has more details.
The IDF says fighter jets carried out a wave of strikes in Syria over the weekend, just within a few hours after Israel struck a target near the presidential palace in Damascus. The escalation is a result of what Israel says is their unwavering support for the Syrian Druze who were harmed in deadly clashes with pro-government groups outside of Damascus. Some believe the recent historic trip Syrian Druze religious leaders made into the Golan Heights put their community at risk in Syria and wish Netanyahu and the military had a plan to defend them ahead of these attacks. The IDF says the strikes targeted a military strike, anti-aircraft artillery, and surface-to-air missile infrastructure. Israel even deployed troops to southern Syria on Saturday to, quote, prevent hostile forces from entering the area and Druze villages. The military action by the IDF came after the violent clashes against the ethnic minority of the Druze community. Disturbing videos and reports circulated online that showed groups defacing the minority's infrastructure, forced removal of religious facial hair, and even a convoy of dozens of Druze dead in an ambush that took place last week. Israel even airlifted more than 15 Syrian Druze to Ziv Hospital in Sfat for medical treatment after they were apparently wounded in the clashes. Israel's efforts and defense for the Syrian Druze comes after hundreds of Israeli Druze took to the streets last week, demanding for the government to take action in supporting their family in Syria. The Druze in Israel and Syria share the same culture and ethics. Although they are separated by a border, many of them are also distant relatives.
And tensions heating up across the Middle East this weekend as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu cancels a planned trip to Azerbaijan in light of the developments. Joining us now to discuss is Brigadier General in the Reserves Amir Avivi, founder and CEO of the Israel Defense and Securities Forum. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
So lots to discuss today. Let's start with Gaza. The IDF calling tens of thousands of reservists for an expanded operation. So first of all, why now? And what are the goals of this operation? What can we expect?
So I think the IDF is pursuing all the time three main goals. One is improving the defense on the towns along the Gaza Strip. We have to bring back people from kibbutzim like Faraza, which are really close to the border. And in order to do that, we need to push Hamas to the west towards the sea and secure the area. The other thing is mounting the pressure to bring all the hostages. It's crystal clear that Hamas is not pressured enough. They need to be pressured more in order to bring them to the point where they're willing to do a hostage deal without Israel needing to give up its goals of war, without giving up the mission of eradicating Hamas as a governmental and military entity. For this, we need to mount much more pressure. And of course, we are bringing tens of thousands of soldiers to really start conquering more areas in order to create really the terms needed to destroy Hamas.
And now let's turn to Syria. You know, we saw extensive Israeli airstrikes in Syria over the weekend and Israeli aid in helping the Druze who are being persecuted under the new regime. What is Israel's objectives in Syria, and could this escalate into war on another front?
I think that the overall strategy, not only of Israel, looking at it globally, the best thing that can happen is to see Syria breaking into autonomies, a Kurd autonomy under a U.S. umbrella, a Alawi autonomy under Russia, and the Druze autonomy under Israeli umbrella. This can create for Israel a buffer zone that is controlled by allies, by the Druze. They have 100,000 armed people on the amount of the Druze. And this can enable us to really have some kind of a partner, proxy, if you will, that will work with Israel. Israel will help defending them, and they will push Julani forces from the areas south of Damascus. In this way, it can be a win-win. We need a partner inside Syria to help secure our borders, and they need our protection from this, I would say, ISIS, Al-Qaeda forces of Julani that are butchering them the way we saw in the last few days in the outskirts of Damascus. Terrible attack on the Druze community.
And finally, I want to discuss the Iranian threat. We're hearing reports of divisions within the Trump administration, sort of two schools, one that believes in a military option, the other in a diplomatic option. And it seems that with the removal of Mike Waltz, the latter are gaining ground. Are we beginning to see the first signs of a disagreement over Iran between Israel and the United States?
Well, I'm not sure. I think it's obvious that President Trump, in order to build legitimation, needs to have these diplomatic talks with Iran, try to really work out something that will make sure that they dismantle their nuclear sites. But the Iranians are not going to give up. They're not going to dismantle anything. They're not going to cede any capabilities. And I believe that in the coming weeks, will become crystal also to clear to the administration that this is not going anywhere. And then the discussions you are mentioning, Lidar, will come about. I mean, some say, we better use Israel. Let's equip Israel. Let Israel deal with the Iranians. Why should we, the Americans, deal with this? And others that say, no, we are leaders. We need to lead an attack on Iran. This is not just about Israel. But I can tell you that in any scenario, Israel is going to deal with these nuclear sites. We are not going to miss the opportunity when Iran is weak and without proxies and moving towards nuclear capabilities to deal with this imminent threat. I'm hoping that we'll see the full support and the participation of the U.S. in this effort, because the Iranians are not going to give up their nuclear sites or their path towards nuclear capabilities.
All right, Brigadier General in the Reserves, Amir Avivi, thank you so much for your insights today.
My pleasure.
And speaking of Iran, there are reports of another explosion in Mashhad, Iran. This is a developing story, so follow ILTV for more details. And in a post-October 7th Israel, Ben-Gurion University is leading with vision and impact. From Beersheba to Sde Boker and Eilat, discover how BGU is turning adversity into action. Don't miss your chance to be part of this powerful journey. Register now for the May 7th virtual event by Americans for Ben-Gurion University. Let's take a look.
In the vast expanse of Israel's Negev desert, something remarkable is unfolding. A place once dismissed as barren and desolate is now blooming with life, energy, and promise.
Here in Beersheba, some of the most groundbreaking research in the world is taking place.
This is Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, Israel's most innovative institution of higher learning and research. But beyond the labs and lecture halls, it's a story of resilience, of vision, and heart.
This beautiful city defies the impossible. It blooms from the desert, serves as a beacon of hope, not only to the Negev, but also to the entire world.
After October 7th, when around 60% of BGU students were drafted into the Army, the university had just one question: how can we help them?
They doesn't come just for studies. They come to be part of something bigger. And I really believe that this is the special atmosphere here in Ben-Gurion that give them the opportunity and the platform to do that same thing.
From trauma recovery to advanced medical innovation, from environmental sustainability to cutting-edge technology, BGU continues to push forward. It's not just education, it is impact, it is hope in motion.
Of course, BGU's impact isn't just about research and innovation. It's about people. It's about the students whose lives are transformed by the university's unwavering commitment to opportunity.
Americans for Ben-Gurion University stands with those students, helping turn their ideas into reality and building a future for the Negev region that David Ben-Gurion once dreamed of.
The most special thing that we have here in Ben-Gurion University, in the student, in the staff, in the faculty, is the passion for the university, for this special community that we build here.
At BGU, the halls are once again alive. Innovation hasn't stopped, it's surging forward. This is more than recovery. This is renewal.
It would be good for the society of Israel if the people here in this region will realize their potential.
And now you can help realize that potential too. Join Americans for Ben-Gurion University's upcoming virtual event on May 7th. Be part of this extraordinary journey. Meet the visionaries shaping tomorrow and helping us build a stronger, more resilient Israel. Register today for the virtual event. Be the change the region needs.
And you can scan the QR code to register for the virtual event with Americans for Ben-Gurion University on May 7th. And moving on, at least 3 countries are threatening to seize a Hamas-affiliated Gaza-bound so-called aid ship if it attempts to dock. The operators of the ship accused Israel of attacking it with drones in international waters near Malta. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
The ship, called Conscience, was dispatched by the Pro-Gaza Freedom Flotilla Coalition. The group is campaigning to end Israel's blockade of Gaza, which has been ongoing for the past 2 months. Malta, Greece, and Turkey all threaten to seize the ship if it enters its ports. The nation of Palau revoked its flag shortly before the alleged Israeli attack. The group released footage with 2 large holes on deck and the ship's generator reportedly damaged. It's unclear where the ship could go to get repairs from damages. The boats were turned away by Maltese authorities. Saudi reports say Hamas is behind the Conscience vessel and that those on board plan to engage with IDF troops if they reach the Gaza shore. The same group sent the Turkish Mavi Marmara ship in 2010, which was stopped and boarded by Israeli troops, leading to the death of 9 activists who resisted troops and injured 10 of them.
And the World Zionist Congress elections, known as the Parliament of the Jewish People, are just around the corner. In fact, today is the very last day to vote. Held every 5 years, these elections help determine how some $5 billion is allocated to support Israel and Jewish communities around the world. Joining us in the studio today is Rabbi Tuli Weiss from Israel 365 Action, one of the parties running in the elections. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So first of all, there are 22 parties running in this election. I think a record number. Many claim to be right-wing. So, why did you start Israel 365 Action? I mean, why is there a need for another sort of Zionist movement party?
Right. I first learned about this when I was traveling into Judea and Samaria. And you notice there that it's very brown. Here in Israel, it's very green. You cross the green line, it's very brown. Why are there no trees planted there? So they made a decision. Kakao made a decision not to plant trees in Judea and Samaria. And so I thought, well, that's terrible. We need to, and they've been creating the facts on the ground to allow a Palestinian state. So I started putting 2 and 2 together, and we realized that the way to change policy is by getting involved.
Interesting, and you mentioned the issue of a Palestinian state. Israelis have largely moved away from the 2-state solution. The Knesset has overwhelmingly rejected it. So, you're very concerned with the Palestinian state right now. Is this because of what you've just said, because of Kakao's policies?
Well, absolutely. In Israel, like you said, Israelis are predominantly against Palestinian statehood. And October 7th, in many ways, was the final nail in the coffin of the 2-state solution. Yet, the parties that are running are half of the parties are left-wing progressive liberal parties that are pushing for a 2-state solution, pushing for a Palestinian state. Just today, there was an attack on the airport, and the missile came all the way from Yemen. If there was a Palestinian state in the hills of Samaria overlooking the airport, then the missile wouldn't have to travel 900 miles from Yemen. The missiles could come 9 miles from the hills of Samaria, from a Palestinian town. It's very dangerous, and that's why we're pushing Israel 365 Action, that you can stop a Palestinian state by voting for Israel 365 Action.
And so if our viewers are watching right now, how can they vote? How can they get more information, get involved?
We have all the information on our website. It takes 5 minutes. It takes $5, Israel365action.com. We also stand for stronger relationships between Jews and Christians. When Herzl started the World Zionist Congress, there were 200 Jews there, and there was 10 Christians at the first Congress. And now, fast forward 129 years, and you have the opposite. You have 10 million Jews in the world who are Zionist, and you have at least 200 million Christians. And we need to do more as a Zionist movement to nurture and strengthen the relationships between Jews and Christians And that's a big part of our party as well at Israel 365 Action. Vote today, Israel365action.com.
Absolutely, another very important issue, Jewish-Christian relations. Rabbi Tuli Weiss, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And a man who once worked alongside the world's most famous street artist is now turning his attention and his heart to Israel. Simon Durban, Banksy's former business manager, is curating a powerful new exhibit born out of the trauma of October 7th. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman visited the exhibition and has the story.
Simon Durban, once the right-hand man to world-famous graffiti artist Banksy, is now beginning a new chapter in Israel as a curator. The 54-year-old former business manager is in process of making aliyah, saying the Hamas massacre reignited his Zionist identity.
It's kind of like a rebirth for me. If everyone has like 100 candles inside them, I'd say at least 10 are extinguished in every Israeli.
Durban's debut Israeli exhibit, titled 07SH10AH23, which looks like the word Shoah wrapped in the date October 7, 2023, opened on Holocaust Remembrance Day in a Tel Aviv gallery. It explores the psychological toll of October 7th through the eyes of more than 20 Israeli artists, including a former hostage. But this isn't a visual retelling of the massacre. Durban says it's about how artists have changed since the attack.
I wanted to give artists a platform to present work with that narrative rather than paint October 7th or sculpt October, you know what I mean?
The show includes tank commanders, burned out photographers, and deeply disillusioned civilians. Jonathan Cooperman, an artist from Tel Aviv, created a piece called Eyes, a response to Arab Muslim friends who went silent after October 7th.
They didn't hear anything, they didn't see anything.
Another contributor, Osnat Ben Dov, lost her exhibit when the Be'eri Gallery was burned down on October 7. Her most powerful work now features a dead parrot, blue, white, and still beautiful.
I found this parrot, and it was very strong because of the color and how he was very pretty, even though he was dead.
Matan Zakowski, a tank commander and artist from Jerusalem, used bullet casings from Gaza to create a haunting new piece.
I'm an artist. I'm not a soldier. Just being an artist in a war zone for so long, we look at materials.
Durban says the exhibit is not only a reflection of Israeli pain, but a message to the world.
We have a huge amount of incredible artists here. We have a strong story, you know, a story of resilience and remembrance.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Rain showers and cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of around 16 degrees Celsius or 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see more cloudy skies alongside steady temperatures with highs of 23 degrees Celsius or 73 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Lidar Grave-Lazi. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.